So I hope all of you are doing well. In this video, we are going to talk about a technique, the third way, using which we can apply the concept of non-contiguous memory allocation. So let's quickly get started. Here we'll talk about virtual memory. So virtual memory is simply a technique that allows the execution of processes that may not be completely in memory. Okay, so here it can also, virtual memory basically allows you to execute processes which are actually not completely in the memory. Only the part of the program that is currently being executed is in the memory, and rest of the part of the program is not in the memory. Okay, basically it helps to visualize that the logical address space can be much larger than the physical address space. Okay, so physical address space is where you actually have your main memory present, and logical address space, right, is far bigger, right, and physical address space is smaller. So using virtual memory, it allows processes to share files and address spaces, and it provides an efficient mechanism for process creation. The main advantage of using this kind of a scheme is that programs can be larger than the physical memory. Consider a scenario where the physical memory itself is, let's say, for 10 MB and the process that you have to execute is for 20 MB, right? So if you go by the simple mechanism, you will just simply say that, the process cannot be executed. But that's not true. We still execute those processes. So what we do is only the part of the program which is currently required is loaded in the memory, and the rest of the part is still in the secondary memory. Okay, so that is how you deal with it. And when the next part would be required, you will swap those particular part of memory which has been done out of the memory and swap in those parts which are currently required. So virtual memory kind of gives you the notion that virtually a large memory is available, whereas actually it's not. So virtual memory serves two purposes. First, it allows us to extend the use of physical memory by disk. Okay, so it's like the space of the physical memory has been extended. Okay, secondly, it allows you to give memory protection also, because each virtual address, logical address, is actually translated to a particular physical address only. So whenever we talk about virtual memory, it can be implemented by demand paging or demand segmentation. In this video, we'll talk about just demand paging, and because using that you will be very easily relate to demand segmentation also. And second reason is demand paging is the one which is more frequently used. So what we do is in demand paging, it is a demand paging segmentation system. It is very similar to the paging system only, but with swapping. So the process is divided into pages, the memory is divided into frames. But the thing is that you keep on swapping the pages in and out of the memory. Okay. Generally, the processes reside on the second memory only, which is the disk, right? And whenever you want to execute a process, you swap it into the memory. Okay. So rather than swapping in the entire pages of the entire process, right? Let's say a memory process has 10 pages. So instead of swapping out all the pages of that memory of that process into memory, you just swap the required page into the memory which is being executed. Okay, this is known as lazy swapper kind of a concept. Okay, a lazy swapper never swaps a page into the memory until and unless this page will be needed. Okay, a swapper basically manipulates the entire process, whereas a pager is just kind of concerned with the individual pages of a process. Okay, so it's like a lazy swapping. You have, let's say, 3 pages of a process. Only when the 4th page is required, then only it will be loaded to the memory, because there is already scarcity of memory, right? If you will load all of them and not use all of them together, you will not be able to do multi-programming, and you will waste a lot of space as well. That is why we use the concept of lazy swapper, which says that only when the page is actually required for that process, only then we are going to load it into the memory. Otherwise, we are not going to load it. That's what the concept is about lazy swapper, which is a part of demand paging. So paging, but paging on demand, right? Putting pages in the memory on demand is known as demand paging. So this is the small pictorial representation for that. Let's say here we have main memory. A main memory has a lot of pages for it. Okay, in the main memory for a program, it has a lot of pages, but only the pages which are currently required are in the memory, and rest all pages for that processes are in the secondary memory only. Only those, when those pages will be required, they will be swapped in the memory. and using which it's like if there are let's say a memory pane memory has 20 frames, right? What we will do is we will try to load it in such a way that at least for every time 7 to 8 processes are in the main memory, with some of their pages in the memory rest in the secondary memory. Okay, so that is what the overall concept is about demand paging. Okay, it says while executing a program, if the program references a page which is not available, okay, it may happen that currently you require a page but it is not available. Okay, so what we do is maybe it is not available because it was swapped out some time ago only. Okay, so the processor treats this as a invalid memory reference as a page fault. You are executing a program, right? The program is nothing but a division of pages, right? You certainly require a page which is not in memory. That is known as a page fault. Okay, and in this case what we do is this kind of the processor treats this invalid memory reference as page fault and directly transfer the control from the program to the operating system to make sure that the page we are demanding comes back into the memory. Okay, and this like way of paging processes in and out of the memory is basically tackled by different page replacement algorithms we have, which we will talk about in the next video. Okay, but for the time being, understand this: for every process we are just going to load a few pages in the memory. Let's say you have load a few pages and the process that you currently require is not present, or the page you currently require is not present. That is known as page fault. In that case, this is an invalid memory reference. So now instead of the program controlling everything, the I would say the responsibility and the control goes to operating system, who has to first make sure that the page comes into the memory, and then only the execution of the process will continue. So when we talk about the advantages of demand paging, first of all, it provides a large virtual memory. Okay. Secondly, it gives you a very efficient use of memory. And thirdly, there is no limit on the degree of multi-programming that you can do with demand paging. But a certain disadvantage with this is that the number of tables and the amount of processor overhead, because you have to do swapping in and out, right? It for handling page interrupts, right? For page faults is sometimes greater than a simple page technique. Sometimes in a paging technique, it's good to load just all the processes. Sometimes when you have like, demand paging, it kind of gives you so high page fault that so many pages are not in the memory that the overhead to bring the pages and swap the pages in and out basically decreases the overall efficiency of the system. Okay. So that is what the overall idea for virtual memory is. Virtual memory gives you the notion that the pages which you actually require are like the memory which you have is very vast compared to the memory which you have actually available, because of the idea that we don't load the entire process into the memory or the program, we just load a part of it, and we use the concept of lazy swapper. Okay. All right then. Thank you so much for taking a look at this video. I hope it is clear to everyone. And in the next video, we'll talk about page replacement algorithms. Okay. Thank you.